Oh, we do. Okay.
All right, we're live here. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of ATL on Fire, the podcast where we talk all things Atlanta United Football Club and all things soccer. We got a lot of soccer to talk about. Dave, Carmen, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Very good. Yeah.
Carmen, you excited about the women's win over Japan?
Yes. Game was a lot of fun. It was a good win. I still like Jaden Shaw. So I'm excited in this last little bit under our interim coach before Emma Hayes gets there. So let's go US.
Cool. We'll talk about that game as we get going here, but we've got to recap the fun win at home on Easter Sunday against Chicago Fire, a 3-0 win. 1 goal by Yakamakis, I think, brought his tally up to 5, if I'm not mistaken, and then 2 by Jamal Terry, who was plugging in there and came in and
who's now injured.
Now injured.
Is he real? Yeah. Oh, that's right. He is. And somebody else too, right?
So a fun win to talk about there. And then, we went up to NYCFC where we have had very little luck ever getting a win. So a draw might be a win, but, we were hoping for more. So we'll talk.
A draw is never a win, Mikey Dobbs.
No, it's like kissing your sister, they say.
Yep, that's what they say.
And yeah, a little bit predictable, I think, in our approach. But we'll see. Yeah, and then you've brought us a lovely red wine as always, Dave. What do we have here?
So this is a slow pressed Cabernet from Lodi, California. They tend to have, it's a very different. I'll give you what it is, but first let me ask you what your opinion of it is.
It's growing on me. I didn't like it on first sip.
Okay,
to be honest, it was a little shocking because I drink so much just standard cab. But I kind of like trying something different here. So let me tell you how I feel about it after the glass is done.
I actually like it, which might mean I'm not a wine connoisseur.
No. This is so it's a little unusual, so that it becomes a little more polarizing. But it is considered to be a very classy wine.
Oh,
right. So it's not like this. I'm giving terrible, but so it's the slow presses tend to be a little bit more smooth and have a little bit of an slightly unusual flavor to the Cabernet. Even though it's a classic California Cabernet, Lodi is a little bit different region. It's not so far from the classic ones, but it's a little
cool label. So should that bring us to one of our sponsors? If you are into wine, maybe go up to Dahlonega and check out Wolf Mountain Vineyards in the Dahlonega Plateau.
I saw something, Mikey Dobbs.
Yeah.
There's if you're not on the YouTube channel, run there now because there's a glass of Wolf Mountain Vineyard pouring itself. That is awesome.
It's delicious looking.
Yeah. Oh man.
So join the vibe. And if you're not into wine, or you are into on and off beer and wine, you could go over to our other sponsor, Wild Heaven Brewery. There are 2 locations.
What I like about our sponsors is because they have Wolf Mountain Vineyard wine at the Wild Heaven Brewery, you can go and have a beer, then a glass of wine, then a beer, then a glass of wine. Or you could go beer, 2 glasses of wine, then a beer,
Yeah.
There's a lot of combination.
See how you feel the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
Find the right chemistry.
And now the beer is pouring itself, people. So if you've never been to our YouTube channel, run there now.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
And also run to the brewery and to the winery and maybe to the brewery to get the wine.
And speaking of Wild Heaven, this is our 98th podcast, Dave and Carmen. Can you believe it?
What?
And so we're 2 away from doing our 100th podcast, and was talking to Hayden. Actually reached out to me, the manager up there at Wild Heaven, and said, hey, why do you guys come up and do your 100th at Wild Heaven? So hopefully we can align on those dates.
I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in. I'm in.
So, all right, we're going to look for that announcement on all of our social medias, right?
So if you haven't been there and you haven't had Wolf Mountain Vineyard, you want to try it, come up and join us on our 100th podcast and YouTube show. I guess. Really
it's kind of difficult actually, because normally when we've broadcast from the brewery, we've had beer, but now they have the wine too. So
yeah,
we're going to be conflicted.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So, all right. Dave, we got to dig into the home win, which should be fun to talk about. I know it was Easter Sunday. It was hard for everybody.
Yeah,
to
let's
have
start with
attention
the
here.
elephant in the room.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Who the bejeebies plays soccer midday game on Easter Sunday?
It's so weird.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
Jewish, but but even I can realize that is totally, completely shambolic. And it showed in the crowd. The crowd was like 30,000,
I know.
which, for other MLS clubs is okay. Right? But come on.
All us heathens at the game. I was there.
Yeah. Well,
and-
she was celebrating Easter Sunday first and then at the game.
So let's go to you, Carmen.
Okay.
Put the camera on you,
All right,
and,
what's up?
and
What's going on?
just curious, like, what was the vibe like? It seemed like it was a fun, exciting, upbeat game, but what was the?
Oh, it's dead.
I want to say it was
Just kidding. I'm put words in your mouth.
dead.
And I was surprised, like,
But-
there was more people in the stands than I was expecting. At least on TV, it looked like it was No?
I mean, more
20,000.
more than I expected, because I expected to go and there be nobody.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the game was good. They were scoring, so I feel like that may have made it seem louder than
Okay.
than it was. But I had a good time.
Yeah, I watched it on Rewind.
Uh-huh.
I think that night or the next day, and it looked like a fun game to be at.
Yeah.
So,
And not only was it Easter Sunday, but we were the only MLS club to play on Easter Sunday.
Is
That
that
is
right?
very-
It was the only game.
I did not know
Strange.
that.
So
is
why?
strange.
There had to be something weird
Yeah.
because I clearly,
Hmm.
because it's Easter Sunday, everybody had all the games on Saturday, which is what Apple TV wants anyway. I'm wondering, Mikey Dawes, maybe you know this more than other people. Does the Apple TV contract call for you have to have at least one game on Sunday, so that they get the second?
I wouldn't think it would be like that
I don't know.
technical in the language.
That was the only thing I could think of because
And
I looked to see whether Mercedes-Benz might have a conflict the day before, but I couldn't see anything.
it's not like it's on like network TV where like the hours kind of matter in that respect. It's on demand, really, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and on the platform. So it's
Well,
it's
then
odd.
why?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
You're a conspiracy theorist. Why? Give me a conspiracy theory.
Oh, well, somebody doesn't like bunnies. I don't know.
Oh, I like it. I like it. I like
Damn
it.
bunnies.
Somebody
Nobody
was
likes-
the anti-bunny.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Fair. All right. We'll go with that one.
Sure. I objected because I also missed the beginning of the Duke game. So you're also fighting March
Yeah.
Madness on Easter Sunday. I was not pleased, but whatever.
So we
Yes,
won. We
and
won.
that's where I was.
That's what I heard.
I was in Dallas watching the Elite Eight and Sweet 16. So that's why I was watching.
You're talking to a brick wall on this one.
Yeah,
I'm not a
it was.
basketball fan.
It was awesome. I got to see Cinderella NC State make it to the Final Four. Sorry,
Boo.
Carmen.
Boo.
The
Yeah.
Duke fans were like, "I'll cry."
And our friend Oscar Akwu, who was
Yep.
on the on this podcast during the first season,
Yep.
is a big Huskies fan. So I've
Right.
had to deal with him on text all day, bragging
Oh.
about this.
Also,
They were
dominant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Anyway,
Ugh.
my beloved St. John's, who didn't even make the tournament, got screwed. Should have been on the tournament. They actually, everybody's like, "Oh, UConn's so dominant. They beat everybody." Whatever. Their last, loss, St. John's in the semifinals of the Big East tournament was to UConn by 5 people,
Oh,
and still didn't
wow.
make the tournament. Who looking at the committee now? Anyway.
Let's move back to the Chicago
Sorry.
Fire.
We
Let me
we
know.
digress. We
Fine, fine.
digress.
My bad. My
Now,
bad.
one thing I wanted to say is Chicago just didn't look like a good soccer team at all. Is that your observation?
Well, and they're
Carmen?
supposed to be better. Go ahead, Carmen. You were at the game though.
I was. They did not look good.
Yeah.
Not in the least.
So it's great that we
yeah.
won 3-0 and we're at home. You would expect that, especially after just seeing the team. They did not seem to click at all as a unit. I know Schweinsteiger's not with them anymore. Who's their new DP that came over? He's
Oh, you're talking about Shaqiri?
Shaqiri, who didn't even start. I don't think.
Shaqiri. No, he did not. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Shaqiri.
came on later in the
I'm
game.
just kidding.
Okay. Before y'all get into it, the Colonel says Atlanta United was not the only game on Sunday.
Oh.
Really?
Maybe he's making a joke because Chicago also played.
Nah. Good
it-
point. Good
Dun-dun-dun.
point.
It was on Sunday because Fox is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe
okay.
it wasn't a
It was
contract-
TV, but it was
Right. So my point was right there. Was
All right.
you could have
Thank you for
contractual
informing us.
things with some of the network TV. So thank you for the Colonel for straightening us out there. All right.
But okay, so Chicago is 10th which is not good, but it's a lot better than where they've been before.
Yeah. Okay.
So
They just did not pass my eyeball
and what I
test.
would say is the thing about Chicago in the past years is that they've been okay, going forward or whatever, but particularly in the midfield and protecting, the defense has been shambolic. You just run through their midfield, right? And they got Kellen Acosta, who is a legit player. I mean, he can really play. It's a MLS veteran for a long time. And so I think that that's a huge upgrade for Chicago. I was expecting them to be a little better because of that. Yeah. And they have been.
But now I watched Acosta. He didn't make too much of an impact in the game, though.
Yeah, well, apparently not.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to talk about the game?
Sure.
Yeah, get into it.
Well, one thing I would like to say is that I think the theme of these two games and the theme of the season so far has been Muyamba partnership with Sleaze, right in the very beginning of the game. It's in the highlight package if we want to go to it, at 45 seconds in the highlight package. One thing that you are seeing this year, and it's funny because Pineda been talking about it the whole time. So Pineda has called ourselves a pressing team that he's always for pressing. I have not seen us as a pressing team ever. I know the commentators sometimes say, oh, Atlanta United likes to be a pressing team. We're not a pressing team, right? I don't think we've ever been a pressing team. And in particular, we have been woeful over the last year and a half at turning people over up the field.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I said. We have such a good forward line. We've got to be able to turn them over. And the biggest thing about a press, everybody always blames the attackers when you're not counter pressing, blah, blah, blah. But you cannot press unless you have the initial balls matched up, the outlets, right? The outlet passes. So one of the things that's so different is that Sleaze and Muyamba recovering it, they actually have the midfield. We don't have empty midfield anymore. Yeah. And because of that, now you're suddenly starting to see occasional moments where guys who are so, whatever, like Gigi, who's been trying to press the whole time and really been unsuccessful. Mm-hmm. If you watch this clip, look how successful Gigi is pressing, because show the clip, just don't play it yet, but just have it frozen at the beginning of the play, right? Look at the midfield. Is there an outlet? They have three guys who are trying to go. And classically, when we would see us like this, they would have like two options. We've talked about this on a podcast last year, right? Oh, there's two options right here. They've got three guys and we've got three guys matched up with them. You can point to which guys are matched up with which.
I think this guy gets all nervous in the back left here, doesn't he?
Well, he turns around to go back because he has nowhere to go. So play the clip.
Yeah.
Oops. So he's looking up the field and he's got nowhere to go. And then he's forced to do that. And we turn him over right at the top of the box and we get a really good opportunity, right? That's the way you score in the modern game. Yeah. Right.
So
by turning people over.
While you say you haven't seen the press, you're saying there's an example of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what's so different this year is we actually have a midfield that's not vacant, that's marked up. And so we're starting to see moments where we're turning them over up the field. Sleaze is picking up some passes, and even when he's not, he's marked up the guy.
Sleaze is fantastic.
Sleaze looks to me legit, really good.
Really good.
I agree.
Yeah, I've been nothing but impressed.
So this is the problem, right? We were actually really hoping that, Gigi didn't qualify with Greece. But Sleaze qualified with Poland for the Euros. Yeah. So he's gone for the entire European Championship, people. What you're going to see is instead of him, you're going to see Fortune.
Mm-hmm. Who, has potential.
Yeah, Fortune's a decent player, but he's no Sleaze.
He's no Sleaze. He needs the time to figure it out. But yeah, that's a gigantic loss. And then we already know Almada is out for probably the Copa and the Olympics, and then may or may never come back depending on the price in his head. We've got thankfully Giacomakis is here.
Thankfully, thanks for missing the penalty kick and letting Greece get eliminated. So he's not.
Gregerson's still TBD, right?
Yeah, but seems to be coming back sooner rather than later. Okay, yeah. Good. I mean, people are talking about him being back in a week.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, they originally said 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And we were, I remember we on the podcast, you said, 3 weeks, it means, month and a half. But I feel like Atlanta United has been pretty on it when they've said 3 weeks. They kind of mean 3 weeks. And it's kind of been 3 weeks. He's going to be back, I think.
And
I mean, we'll see. He's not back yet.
Yeah.
Derek Williams and who else got injured?
Derek Williams
Jamal.
got injured and Jamal Tiare.
Tare. They're
Now,
out.
Tiare is not such a bad loss when Gigi's around because he's not going to start over Gigi.
So they said 2 to 4 weeks for both of those players, which means maybe in the 3 to 4 week window.
And Williams would be a big loss if Stian Gregerson is not back, because if Williams is out now, so the last couple of games it's been Williams and Cobb.
Yeah.
So it would be Abram and Cobb. What do you think about that?
That's not ideal.
That's a good way to put it.
You wonder at that point, do you switch to like some sort of 3 in the back formation? I don't know if you had that.
I mean, one thing I will say is that, a lot of people are talking about Williams being good. We pointed it out a few times. I disagree. I think he's got some real flaws. There's a reason why he's bounced around the MLS. But people are like, yeah, but we're not giving up goals. And it's true. He hasn't been exposed as much. And the reason, in my opinion, why that's happening is because Sleaze is doing a fantastic job picking up like the most dangerous guy. Muyamba's working hard off of it.
Yeah.
And we're protecting our back four. The number of times that we actually, broke things up just in front of the back four through Sleaze was just astonishing. There was a moment, not in this game, but in the second game, I don't know whether it's in the highlight package, but we gave the ball away horribly, right? Almada gave the ball away in a terrible giveaway. Yeah. And Sleaze just won it right back because he was still sitting there right in a perfect spot. Okay. And the last time I saw Atlanta United give the ball away and then recover it that quick was just like, never. Yeah. Right. Or at least not in the last number of years. I mean, so this is the difference that kind of a player makes.
So I'm trying to remember in the Chicago game, did we score just before half? Or did
yes. So 2:17 in the highlights is the first goal. Saba, who's usually playing on the right, actually switches over. And the thing I like to say about this is, Saba's really smart about his movement. It's funny on this play because the commentators are saying, how did Saba run by their right back who's supposed to be really fast? And the answer is, it's all about timing.
Yeah, because right? Saba's not fast.
No, he's not that fast, but he continually gets open and behind people because his timing of runs is excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, really excellent.
Yeah, and he's very explosive. When he goes, he goes.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter there's some people who are arguing about whether Saba's really good and why is he so good. In my opinion, the thing that you're not talking about, the reason why he's so good is the timing of the runs. Yeah. And you can't teach that, or you can try. I've tried, but it's very hard. And the people who do it, they can really
it's experience, and sometimes it just clicks when you see the angle and the spaces as a player. That's something you can take advantage of.
Yeah. So in this case, the overload, I mean, this is what I've been trying to say about for 2 years now, or 3 years now with Pineda, 2.5 years, right? So when we had the airplanes, right, he was always talking about overloading. And I'm like, it doesn't work because A, they were static, and B, it was an overload 2v1 where everybody knew where it was coming from all the time. Mm-hmm. So all the team had to do is have some plan for it, and they did, and then they blocked it, and then they got counterattacks and they scored on us. Here's a perfect example of an overload because you have Silva, who's our normally left of the front three, playing it to Saba, who's normally our right of the front three, and they're both on the left side. So they've created a sort of 2v1 here. I know it looks like the other two defenders for Chicago are in the play, but it's kind of a 2v1 overload. And this is an unpredictable overload because who thought Saba, the right forward, is going to be popping up on the left, right? And when you do that, right, in this particular case, nobody at right back for Chicago has planned to see Saba over there. Yeah. So they have to react to that. They have to talk to each other. And when they do that, sometimes it don't go so well.
It seems like we only allow the airplane from the right side now.
I know.
It does. Yeah, Wiley never
And that's
goes
what
in
I was
there.
saying. So what I don't understand and what I would still argue, people are like, oh, Lennon's been so good. I'm like, he could still be that good. And Wiley could be good if they pick their moments and it's unusual and you don't know who's coming, right? Yeah. I loved Stian Gregerson has gone forward a couple times and he's looked terrific with the ball in the front third, right? So again, if they don't know who it is, nobody's responsible for Stian Gregerson. So if he occasionally, I'm not talking about a lot, but 2 times a game, 3 times a game, maybe he shows up, there's nobody responsible for that. And that's where you create real turmoil, because the defense is like, who's supposed to be for that?
Yeah. So do you want to check this goal out here?
Sure.
Let's do it.
You
All
did
right, hit
describe
play.
it.
So just slots it right down the edge of the 18, and cross into Yakamaki's, of course, who's just on his horse.
Yeah.
Easy little poke in.
And we talked in the past about, particularly, in past years where we've had some good wingers and things, right? About how, we were on Lennon because, he crossed the ball all the time and created all these opportunities. And Pineda would talk about he's the best creator in the league, and we never scored off of it. Yeah. And the reason why we didn't score off of it is we didn't have people running in the box on those teams, right? Now we always have Gigi. Yeah. Like, he's always there. And obviously one thing that we learned, as we're about to see on these highlights, is Tiare does it too.
Yeah. So one of the things that on the text chain with the soccer people, they were commenting that Almada's been asleep, especially even during this game. And while like in this game, I wouldn't say Almada had a stellar game by any means. I think maybe 6 out of 10 in terms of his potential. Mm-hmm. Without him, nothing really gets created. Even in that play, he's the one who started it off.
Yeah, he drew a lot of attention and then opened it up for Silva.
People miss that. And I realize we expect more from Almada, and I think we should, particularly of late. But I think even in this game, like all the creativity came from him, if you really go back and look at it. So just curious of your opinion. Do you think he's a little bit asleep, or
One thing that I think people don't talk about enough, young players. I mean, one of the problems I've had with Almada, I don't know if you recall, he didn't have any preseason with us. And the reason for that is because he was playing in Olympic qualifiers, right? Yeah. Down in Argentina, right? So I don't think you can underestimate how much it takes to play in an elimination game. They had to win that game to get into the Olympics. He's I think he's the captain of the Argentinian Olympic team. He was in those games. He had all the pressure on them. He was traveling to South America. For young players, that takes a toll. And you're like, oh, he's young, he should be able to do it. And it's not so much a physical toll, right? Because he can run all day. Yeah. It's a mental toll, like whatever. So I feel like he's gotten off to a really slow start in this season. And if you had asked me, in hindsight's 2020, but I would have said I might expect a bit of a slow start from him because of all this stuff. And his mind is in different places. He's going back to Copa America and things. It's not great.
And I don't know if you agree with this too, but I think sometimes when he's playing with different players and then switching back to Atlanta United, and I see him make these passes for Atlanta United that I'm like, man, had his teammate been a better player, they would have actually been there. And so, you can blame Almada because at the end of the day, it's a bad pass because it didn't make it to the person. Yeah. But I'm like, man, if the other players reading it right, that's actually where they should have been. And people miss that. And I'm like, it's frustrating too. And I'm sure he's frustrated with some. And look, there's also some just shitty passes he's made too. I'll not let him completely off the hook.
He's always had this thing though, when he drops deep, he's very aggressive about passing, even out of our own back. Yeah, and he sometimes when he does that, sometimes he gives the ball away, and he's done that the whole time. Yeah. Right. And, the question is that worth it or not? And it's tricky, right? Because sometimes when he does that, it opens up the whole thing. And so I would say, as he matures a little bit, he should make sure that the completion percentage on that is really good. Yeah. But then the occasional moments when you have to have a player and give him the freedom to do that. And you can do it when you have a sleaze sitting behind, because as I said in the second game, right, against New York City FC, he gives the ball away badly and sleaze just comes and wins it right back.
That and I also think, I'm more concerned about Almada when he drops back and somebody's on his back and he's a little too soft and they take it away from him in those moments. Those are the ones I really don't like. And I think they put us at a lot of high risk versus some of his more aggressive play out of the back. Like I haven't seen him, that hasn't cost us yet. I've seen him cost us when he drops back, is a little complacent, and somebody wins the ball off of him.
Gives it up a little softly
coming deep in our area. He needs to be a little stronger in those moments. and not take that for granted that he's putting the team at risk.
Yeah.
So
There.
let's check out the other goals. So that was the Yakimaki's goal in the first half, and then it's like the 66th minute, if my memory is right.
Yeah, it's 3:42 in the highlights. In this case, the partnership you've seen this year with Saba and Lennon has been absolutely terrific. And here you're going to see we actually switched this whole play. They'll show it on the second version of the clip. We switch it from the left to the right. Almada makes a beautiful touch under pressure. And this, again, some people who are critical of Almada, you'll watch him on this play when they show the second replay of it. But anyway, what's really nice about here is Saba and Lennon work together, unlike a certain Araujo who did not work, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things about that is that Araujo was always trying to use his pace and go wide around people. And Lennon was always overlapping and was just running into that space and bringing a defender. What you'll see here is that Saba gets it. He's all the way on the touchline. He is naturally going to dribble in because he's really comfortable with the ball in tight spaces around people. He loves to make those little passes.
Yeah.
Araujo, that wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so when he does that, now Lennon is just sprinting. And this is what I was talking about, the no airplanes. If you look at the start of this clip, where is Lennon?
Yeah, he's way back.
He's basically in our own half, 10 yards back.
He's in the back
and
line.
He's 20 yards behind the ball. This is how you get a timed run as opposed to an airplane who's standing there. Because now as Saba dribbles into the middle, he has all day to time this pass. So play the clip.
Look at Lennon on his horse too. He's like, I'll take that space.
Yeah. And the timing of it is perfect. And what a ball.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Again, that's everybody charging down. That's the cross that we've been talking about for the last 2 years.
And
right?
this is what we're talking about. Two things. One is there's no need to send Lennon on an airplane ahead of time because he can make that run late. Look, he's already in the back well, actually, can you go back for just a second on that? First of all, I want to show for the people, watch Almada make this whole play under pressure. Look at him in the middle, receive this ball.
Oh, that's
He's got three guys on him and he switches that out of the air. I mean, that is magical. So anybody's talking about Almada being so bad. That's not a goal without Almada. And we've now showed it twice in this game.
That's what I was saying.
The person who started the whole play, Almada.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody misses that because they always want to look at how did it finish?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Lennon, who we've talked about, again, we was crossing and crossing and crossing. We couldn't finish. The problem is in those teams, we didn't have the striker who could go up and head the ball. And this team has two, clearly, Gigi. And then even the backup Tiare can go do it.
And we have this new lone guy, Rios, who we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. He's an MLS veteran. He clearly can score. He's good in the air.
Yeah.
He's going to fit this mold. And so I think one of the things that we've done is get better players that fit with one another.
Does Miguel Barry score this year for LA Galaxy?
Of course not.
Come on, let's look it up.
It could happen. You want me to look it up for you?
Yeah,
guys?
look that. Keep me honest on that.
All right.
Okay, before you do that,
darn it! Sorry.
Before you do that, I think you probably must be reacting to the women's game.
Yes,
no?
I am indeed.
Because we were up 2-1, and now it's 2-2.
Yes. Okay, continue.
Okay. So before you do that, can we go in the highlights actually to the final goal, which is at 6:57? I don't think we need to show it, but there was a red card in between from Chicago. It was a blatant red. I mean, he just stamped on the back of his leg for no reason, and it should have been a red.
It was weird. You couldn't, from inside the stadium where we were sitting, you couldn't tell what happened. Like our whole row was like, "What happened? I don't know."
Do you want to watch it?
I don't.
It's really bad.
We actually looked on
Okay.
Apple TV and we're like, "Oh, got it. Okay." All right.
What I want to do is show on this goal, this last goal at 6:57.
What a strange formation that is, just looking at it. But anyway,
I don't know what's happening here, but let's see. We'll get. I'm not going back. We're just gonna keep.
This is very late in the game. That's why it looks so strange.
Oh wait, did I miss it?
Yeah, you went past it.
Oh, sorry, my bad, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
6:57.
That was the end of the game. That's why I was like, why is everybody in a
Must be back a little bit.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
I might
That's all
got
right.
it a little bit.
That's all right. Let's see.
Yeah, it's a little further back.
Back.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
there's
go.
cheering.
cheering. Heads
Keepers
down.
down.
There
Sad-
we go.
Okay, good.
All right.
Oh, it must be 5:47. I must. Anyway, wait, pause it.
Ah!
Because what I want you to watch on this play. So we were talking about how we didn't know TRA, right? And we didn't know whether he was good. We actually said that his biggest quality is he seemed to be a madman.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He doesn't. He doesn't seem to be a madman. I don't know why he was so angry last year, but whatever it was, he's not that angry anymore. He hasn't done any. We haven't seen any of that this year.
Yeah.
None of it. But anyway, so we were wondering whether he was classy, and everybody's going to talk about this play, how he actually fakes it and cuts it back. And I'll pause it, I think, when I get to the moment. What I want you to notice is what he does right before he gets the ball. Okay, so we'll play the clip. So we're over on the left side. We're working it. Almada does magic stuff again. He gets it again.
Yeah, total magic here to make this.
Watch that. You see that? I'm going to go back.
Yeah, a little step back.
Yes. So if you go back, watch TRA right here. As it's coming in the middle, watch
Steps
what he
back,
does.
opens
Ready?
up his hips.
He goes backwards, right?
Ah.
And that's why he's ready to finish that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is really good striker instincts.
Yeah.
Because most people just forward, go,
Yeah.
right? So that's classy.
Yeah. He saw Almada create the space and was going to give him an outlet.
Yeah.
And then that little bit of space let him watch the whole play develop.
Because most people
clean
wouldn't
it
have
up.
been thinking about a pass. They'd be thinking about just go for the cross. And he backs up. You can see it even in this. He backs up, right? And that way the ball comes back up. Boom.
Whoop.
Yeah. That creates the
Lovely.
space to be able to
Really?
make the move.
Really lovely.
But yeah, people
So-
are saying, again, Almada's asleep. Like, this part isn't asleep.
Yeah. But they only think about it whether he scores.
Yeah. So that's the Chicago game in a nutshell. Anything else to talk about on that one?
Mm-mm.
All right, let's move it on.
All right.
So we go on the road, which is our Achilles heel.
Right. And I would say the opening statistic, 5 wins out of the last 34 matches on the road, people. Ouch. That's horrible.
That is horrible.
Not good.
So yeah, let's talk about
okay, so first of all, we got to talk about, whenever you talk about New York City FC on the road, you got to talk about venue, right? So we're no longer in
Embarrassing.
Yankee Stadium. We're now at Citi Field.
over in Queens.
Yeah, in Flushing, Queens. And that's where, to be fair to New York City FC, they have broken ground on a new stadium that's going to be right next to this baseball stadium where the Mets play.
So they have broken ground.
Yes, it's actually it's still going to take another year or so. I think it's going to be one more season, but it's well under construction.
What is the finish date target?
I think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be ready for the, well, I was going to say it's possible it's going to be ready for the opening of next year, not this year,
Oh wow!
but
I
it's
wouldn't-
possible it'll be ready for the opening of next year.
Oh, okay.
That'd be something.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for them. I think that's good.
Finally.
Good for them and good for the league. So
And I did some research to find out. I was curious. So the Yankee Stadium has this famous short right porch, right? That's why. So if you're a Yankees hitter, you have to be a big left-handed slugger because it's really easy to hit home runs there. Only if you're left-handed. Anyway, so because of that, they have to do this crazy ass thing with the pitch, where it can't even really be in the full outfield. Their soccer pitch on the baseball stadium goes across the infield.
Yeah.
Right. So at Citi Field, it has a normal outfield. So they actually it's much more in the outfield. And I was curious whether or not the dimensions were larger. And my research kind of suggested the dimensions are kind of the same. It's a much better pitch because it's a lot less over the infield. Because at Yankee Stadium, they actually have to play over the mound. They have to actually kind of level them out, and it's just awful.
Yeah. It just looks embarrassing.
It does. Yeah. Don't look
But so yeah, I mean that's good to hear. Though it's hopefully only a year away.
Yes, finally, New York City FC will have a stadium.
So again, on the smaller field, I felt like this was an advantage for a few of our players. Like I think you mentioned, like it prevented Lennon from pinching too much.
Well, I was joking about this idea.
Joking, but he was kind of already pinched because easier for him to get out wide. But the other thing I noticed, I don't know if you agree with this, I felt like Noah Cobb had a pretty solid game, and it was because there was less space and a little less time for him to think. And I don't know if you had the same thinking there. I just felt like he was really strong in that game.
So I
from
would
all of his
say
performances.
the field, as I agree with you completely, the field favors some of the things that we do poorly tactically. So we really tend to pinch in and give people wide, but there's no wide in New York City FC. There's no room. There's not anything. Even if you pinch in pretty far, you're not far enough away where you can't get back out there. And then same thing for a center back. So Cobb is athletic. He's tall. He's big. He looks like he's a pretty good one-on-one defender. Where he's going to make mistakes, as a lot of young defenders would, is in reading the game and making decisions. But in New York City FC, in that small thing, you're not making a lot of decisions. There's not a lot of, the ball's going over the top, or, it's basically, here's the guy and you just got to win the ball.
Yeah. So I think we saw the best of his strengths under those conditions. It was one of my first observations in that game.
Yeah, good for him. We're not trying to diminish any of his play, but that really feeds into what he's good at.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree completely.
Curious if you agree with that. It's good. What else were some of the key things in that game for you?
Well, as I said, the overarching theme of this season, sleaze. Yeah. In this game, he was absolutely terrific in the middle, right? I mean, the number of times that we've just gotten dominated in the middle, and there in New York City FC, the middle is everything, because the field is so small. Yeah. It's just the little middle. And if you don't dominate the middle, I mean, for years, they would just win the territorial battle in New York City FC would, and that would win games for them, because if you win the territorial battle in the middle, you get chance after chance after chance, because it's only 10 yards until you shoot.
Yeah.
Right. So in this case, he was terrific. But one of the things I was surprised about in this game, and maybe you can comment on it, it was super wide open. It was end-to-end kind of stuff. There were tons of chances for both teams.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is that I felt like Atlanta, it was wide open. I felt like both teams had plenty of chances. So Atlanta United didn't lack, the opportunities. And that's why, I started texting you at the end of the first half.
I'm going to get to that in 1 second. Before you do that, I was going to say, so the chances that we missed, Almada, Wolf, Muyamba all missed great chances in the first 30 minutes. Okay, so now let's get to this famous. I'm going to say this is famous.
We had 18 shots. They had 24, but we had 6 on target and they had 3. So it sounds like I don't know what our XG was, but according to that, it may have been higher. They had a little bit more possession. But outside of that, right, it was just, like you said, kind of a wide open game.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? So Mikey Dobbs texted me, was somewhere in the 34th minute or whatever.
About 34th.
And he writes this, which is, I'm like, are you kidding me? So he writes, okay, my prediction is Atlanta comes close and then New York City SC puts in the dagger. Right after he says that, we come really, really close.
Yeah, that was the one.
Score.
Saba pressures.
Yes.
The goalkeeper kind of muffs it. And
Freeze actually tries to make a touch. He makes an absolutely shambolic touch. Saba goes flying in there. The goalkeeper hits it off of Saba and then makes an amazing save down off the deflection. I don't know if you probably should show that one in a second.
And I said, there it was.
He said, there it was. That's exactly what he texted. There it was. And then he immediately followed it says, here comes the dagger. Right. And then boom, a kick.
Yep.
So the question is, Mikey Dobbs, how did you know?
Well, I mean,
I have to say, it was amazing.
Honestly, because you watch enough soccer, you play enough soccer. I felt like we had all the momentum at that portion of the game on the road to try to get the goal. But and this is where I'm curious of what your tactical thinking is when someone like me knows that's going to be the outcome more than likely is if you're being aggressive, right? And trying to press like Saba was to get the goal.
Yeah.
The opportunity cost is if you don't get it, then something else bad happens on the other side of the field. So that's how I kind of knew. And it's not totally guesswork, in my opinion. I just feel like it is a bit of an experience watching these games that are free flowing. You're on the road. The stats say that you're going to lose the game. And you know what I mean? Everything is like stacked against you. And so if you don't get it, then it goes against you. And that's exactly what happened.
So I think it's a little after this. That's when it
After.
actually happens.
Mm.
So you can find it for it. So first of all, I will say is after this set of texts, I immediately here's the play.
Oh, is this it? Okay, hold on.
All right. You can get, hold on, we're going to show it in a second. But so I immediately texted Mikey Dobbs and I said, okay, may I please have a lottery number? and to my chagrin, no lottery numbers were forthcoming, Mikey Dobbs, because I was like, dude.
I like the scratch off. I'm not much of the big game lottery person.
I was like, I'm about to be a freaking millionaire because Mikey Dobbs knows everything, right?
It was one of my better.
Oh, I didn't know that was the same.
It was one of my better real-time predictions on the text thread.
Okay, so we're gonna show the clip now in just a second.
Oh, the same one. This one.
Yeah.
All right.
So New York City passes it back to the goalkeeper. He tries to make a touch. He makes a terrible touch. He kicks it off of Saba. It goes back towards his own goal, and he gets back with a palm to save it.
That was a great save.
It was an amazing save. So that's the one. And then right after that, Mikey Dobbs is like, oh, so that means, here comes the dagger. Mm-hmm. And if you keep going a couple of minutes later, you'll get to the penalty kick. But so to answer your question, right? So it should never, even when it feels like that, if you have control and midfield that's well marked up or whatever, that should never happen, right? Yeah. Because the reason why you feel that way is because you're not in control of the game, right? It's the same way when you have a team, if you're a Manchester United fan like Carmen and I, in the last 5 minutes of the game, you're like, it doesn't matter that we just scored. We're about to give up another one again because we have no ability to control and see out the game.
None.
But I think that was our point is neither team had control of the game because it was free flowing. And is that a part of it? It's like, is that the naive part of Pineda not having a different strategy going into this, knowing the stats, knowing that we can't just be free flowing, Saba attacking, pressing, like we have to play something different because it's not working. It's not producing wins. And you have to change something up on these road games for us to figure out way to get the W.
I think you just said the most important thing, which is road. Okay. So one thing that we're doing this year is we're not quite possessing. Under the early Pineda years, we had the best possession team in the league. We had sometimes at 60%, right? Or 57%, 56%. And you don't need it. There's so much attacking play, particularly at home, right? So you get on the front foot and you can be a little bit open and you can win those games in the big stadium of Mercedes-Benz. You got to say, look, if we can get times to run at you with pace, as you just saw in the Chicago game, we're going to score 3 goals. And it looks like with our attack that at home, by and large, we're going to come close to scoring 3 goals against most people, right? Maybe not the very, very best, but in most people. Okay. So now here's the thing. On the road, as you just pointed out, right, you still have to say, it's a different story, right? And we've been talking about it for a long time. Pineda will never do it. On the road, I might have said, look, we've still got those attacking players. And of course, we didn't in this game because we didn't have Gigi, right? So fair. Yeah. But let's say normally we still have those attacking players. So all you want to do is control the game. And that's where you bring in another defensive presence in the midfield. And as I have said, the obvious thing to do is Dax McCarty, who's a terrific defender in the midfield and as a major MLS veteran, and you play with him alongside Muyumba and Sleaze. You take off Silva. Mm-hmm. You play only with, you still have Almada, Gigi, and Saba up front, right? And you can control the game and get that win.
And that one, the only Tyree would have been in.
Yeah. So in this case, you might have said, oh, is it enough? Do you feel like if you play that defensively in the midfield, right? So if you were to sacrifice in this game, let's say a Silva and bought on a Dax McCarty, now you're left with, it would have been Saba, Tiare, and Almada.
I think so. Because first off, what we're doing isn't working.
Yeah.
And second off, I feel like we needed a better balance of, especially in the first half when they were pressing us hard. We kept trying to play it out of the back. Don't be a hero on these short fields. Like sometimes Brad goes out and kick it up the field.
Kick it up the field.
Because Tiare is also good at holding it up. You get a lucky bounce off to Saba, and then that's how we get that goal on the road.
How did we score the goal?
Yep.
It was Brad Guzan's first
First
assist when he
assist.
finally didn't play out of the back.
And I said that in my text too. I said, why are we playing out of the back? We need to play a little bit of kickball.
All right, we'll get to that in a second. I think Carmen's about to show us a clip. Are you going to show us the penalty?
Yeah, I suppose.
I was really on it with my comments.
You really were. Can I just say, I think I was watching basketball and I turned on my phone and it was like 95 messages. I was like, what is happening?
I noticed you didn't get involved. I was like, Carmen's going to look at her phone and be like,
what is happening? I think this is the goal.
Yeah, so we give it away right there. Bad giveaway.
Bad giveaway, but we're kind of,
yeah,
that is super soft.
Yeah, super soft, but I think it's a penalty.
I
believe it or not.
Well, I think it's a penalty if that's what the ref decided to call in the field. I like not calling that if I'm a ref trying to just play fair.
Yeah.
But once you call it, you're not going to overturn it on VAR.
But one thing I want you to say, can we go back to the moment just before we turned over the ball? Because I don't think the other one is on the highlight package.
Right before we
right on this same clip, right before we turned over the ball.
No, because that's the Saba miss there, so there's nothing before.
Yeah,
right here. No, you can you can say play it. Yeah.
Okay.
So play it now. Pause it. So we're about to turn over the ball here, right? Because we're trying to build out of the back, right? But one of the things you should notice here, and I'll use the arrow because I can do that now.
Lennon is not pinched for once.
so
is that what you're gonna say?
Well, so that doesn't surprise me because Lennon likes to get forward and he's about to go forward. But what I really wanted to point out on this clip is Muyumba, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sleaze. Right. So this is why you can do more aggressive things, because right now they are in a really protective thing. Now it's a really bad giveaway, but you notice the reason why we gave up the penalty kick is because Muyumba's close enough even to make a play on this.
Yeah.
And that's why we're not giving up goals. So I can play the clip. Yeah, play the clip. Right. So we give away ball badly there. And as soon as we give away the ball, so we got our back two here. Look how close Muyumba and Sleaze are, right? So it had to be almost a perfect giveaway where we literally passed it to them, right? In order to beat that, right? And if you play it, right, just a few seconds later, look how much we've closed it down.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously, it doesn't work for us because Muyumba gets a little bit over aggressive and fouls him unnecessarily. But when he fouls him, I mean, look, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, they've closed it, and that's why when you have defensive midfielders who are in a good position, even if you give away the ball, you don't give up goals.
Yeah, and it's a little unlucky that the call goes against Muyumba here, but it was
the arm. Because the actual crushing from behind was no problem. It's the arm.
Yeah, it was a guy Italian. As soon as he felt it, he flops to the ground. Game 1-1.
Mr. Flop. Yeah. Okay.
No, it's Rodriguez. There you go. So there you go.
He's not Italian.
Well, we know where the flopping comes from in the game. Come on.
I want to say, the guy who didn't look good in this game, Wolf.
He did not.
No, because I mean, there was
Tyler Wolf or their Wolf. Because
there were two Wolves.
There was a Wolf on each team. That's true. But I'm talking about Tyler Wolf. So there was a moment which I think is not in the highlight.
He missed two
package.
kind of sitters that were like sitting there on the back post waiting for it, winding up.
Not only did he miss those, and I'm not going to criticize those because that happens to whatever, but on the very last kick of the half, Lennon plays another beautiful cross, and he's at the back post. And what's interesting is the ball, you could see the flight. He was watching the flight from 60 yards, 50 yards, whatever it was, right? And you could see it was going right over the head of the last guy. He was wide. He was always in front of him.
Yeah.
So all he had to do was anticipate that. He could have come right behind him and he has a free strike on goal. And he just assumed the defender was going to get it. He just stood there. And then when it went over him, he kind of went, and it skipped by him.
Yeah.
You're like, that to me is the problem.
Yeah.
Because the problem, young kids are going to have some, quality finishing, some not finishing. But to me, the lack of really seeing that and being aggressive to that, not so good.
Yeah. But
so his movement is terrific. I still argue that in the last 15 minutes, 10 minutes of the game, his pace and his movement really helps open up things. But the reason why he's not good from the beginning of the game and why he's not really a starter yet is that.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some moments there he could have could have added to his minutes per goal because they were there to be had.
Absolutely. So now if we want to go Guzan later in the second half around, I don't know, 60 something minute is where Guzan gets his first MLS assist. And credit to Mikey Dobbs, because Mikey Dobbs kept saying, why are we forcing our way out of the back in this bandbox of a field? And we could just put it and let the guys run. So Guzan obviously was listening at halftime. And let's play the clip. He's like,
so the last time he did this was at Aston Villa, I think. But yeah, he launches that one.
Since to Mosquera, the fastest guy on the field.
Yep.
One.
Another great header by
And Mosquera, remember when we said Mosquera couldn't deliver a ball? He has somehow he turned a corner. He is a much better player this last half of last season and this year.
100%.
Yeah.
He definitely turned a corner towards the end of last year.
Yeah. I mean, remember, because he was coming back, and we were so like, why are we even inviting him back? Because he was really bad in his first stint with the team.
Yeah, he's definitely been progressing, which is awesome. But also you can see, I mean, again, it's fundamental to the way that we're, the same thing that's happening with Lennon when he gets the way we're releasing it earlier. But I mean, that's just a long ball from Guzan. So,
and now the guy who's not progressing, or maybe even going backwards. So if you go to the 81st minute, I'm sure it's in the highlight package, right? Lennon has a great cutback. He's down the wing again, as he's been beautifully working with Saba. He makes a beautiful cutback to Almada, and Almada delivers a delicate ball, as you were pointing out, to the far post, to a wide open Etienne. And the commentator, bless his heart, said, oh, Etienne made the wrong decision to try and head it back across. He did not try to head that across. He was trying to head that in the goal. It was just so shambolic. It was total bullocks. I mean, it was awful.
Did you say 81st minute?
81st, yeah.
They have it.
No, it's not in the package.
That has to be in the package. No, keep playing something.
No, it's a little forward. It's forward.
Just play.
Go forward. No, it's got to be
okay.
past that. Maybe it's a little. Maybe I missed a minute, but keep going.
There it is, right there.
Right here. This is it?
Must be.
You want to try it?
Yeah,
no, that's our own, but
let's see. We'll see. No, that's them.
We'll comment on this. What happened on this?
I'll keep looking. Y'all keep talking amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I can't believe they didn't have it. Maybe they was merciful,
yeah.
right? Because it was an absolute. You remember this play, right? Etienne's at the far post, and he's running in. It was exactly the same position that we just saw TRA just score on, right? And he tries to hit it down into the goal, and he scuffs it so badly, it's kind of spins off his head and goes back. I mean, Etienne has been a disaster.
Yeah, he's not good.
Oh, bummer.
Well, I mean, again, maybe we shouldn't be so harsh because, we kind of said at the beginning that Mosquera was a disaster.
Yeah, but no, we were saying that while we were saying Etienne was also a disaster, and Etienne is showing no signs of turning.
I have to say, Etienne had been in the league with Columbus a couple of years, or a lot more, and Mosquera was just brand new, so.
And Etienne also is playing a striker role here, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the.
Yeah, he came in as basically for TRA as the central striker.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and then I will say, and then it's probably also not in the package, in the 92nd minute, Wiley, who has been quite good defensively this year, I mean, he gets beaten like a cone, right? It's unbelievable in the 96th minute, and they pull the ball back to the top of the 18. Maybe that's what we were just looking at. And we were really lucky that he just shot it, hit a bullet right at Guzan.
Yeah, that was what we just watched.
Yeah. But Wiley on that play, maybe you can go back to it. Did they show Wiley getting beat on that play?
Let's see.
I mean,
I think so. Let's try.
Go back a little bit a second.
Let's try this and
play
see
it.
what happens.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Because the one thing that we'll say is that Wiley, who's not going forward anymore, his defending has been better. And you're like, oh, but except for now.
Here we go.
Oh, I mean, that's just terrible. You just let him go right by him. Right? He made Wiley look like a cone.
Yeah.
We're a little bit fortunate the shot was right at Guzan. But anyway, so I'm not picking on Wiley. I think he's been terrific so far. I don't understand this Pineda, keeping him in handcuffs and never going forward, because we went from him going forward every single play on airplanes to now him never going forward.
Yeah.
there has to be a
So
happy medium.
When's the last time he scored? It was last season.
Yeah,
right?
he hasn't even
Mid-
come close to
last
scoring.
season.
Nowhere close.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so now, in the end, a draw. How do we feel about it, Carmen?
I will take that draw without any GG, and who else were we missing? But I'll take a draw without GG.
Yeah, I'll take the draw.
And I'm going to totally disagree with you. I think New York City FC is a shambolic side. They're a mess. They're going to be at the very bottom of the table. And at the end of the season, we're going to look back at that and be like, if we can't win on the road against that team, we can't win on the road, period. Now, it doesn't say we're not going to get better and win on the road, but that was a horrible tie, in my opinion.
The question is, okay, so horrible tie. What did we do tactically that made that a horrible tie? And that was kind of where I was going before, because I was like, free-flowing game.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned it, right? Like you said we should have brought in Dax McCarty, played a defensive posture, which I agree with, which is why I was asking that question.
Yep.
Instead, we played the naive. We're just going to play Atlanta United soccer on the miniature field, on the away with momentum against us, and Mike predicted it, and it all happened, right?
If you'll recall,
Pineda had no imagination to try to reconfigure.
Go ahead.
And you know, I mean, that's what Tata did. He would,
well, I was just going to say,
up.
If you recall, the debut of Miles Robinson was in the playoffs at New York City FC when suddenly Tata came out with 3 center backs. And people were like, what? Who's this guy, Miles Robinson, we've never heard of? And because of that, what he did was the equivalent of this is by he was like, look, we still got, in that case, you still had Almiron and you still had, all of the players, Joseph Martinez and et cetera, right? And so he said, look, all we have to do is clog it up. They're going to try to get a lot of shots from the top of the 18. And if we clog it up in that space, right, then they're not going to score and let the other guys do the rest. And we won that game, right? So that to me is a much better tactical. Now, I would have said, if we play New York City FC on the road again in a regular stadium, right, then I might have said, look, we're a better team, particularly if we didn't have any injuries, right, which we did, right? But if we had our full squad,
right,
I'm okay with sometimes being like, let's just go run them off the pitch. We're a better team. Let's go play the way we're doing it, right, even on the road. And so for those of you out there saying, wait a second, you're advocating for just parking the bus every time we're on the road. No, I would say that, first of all, you need to have your full side to go after someone.
But if we're going up against Columbus, maybe
you're going against New York City FC instead of Columbus, right? And C, you got to be doing it in a regular stadium. Yeah. When you don't have those, you have to realize now's the time. Yeah. So how do you make that decision? I think we just pointed out that the things that you have to consider.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we talked about it all. Any other MLS action that you wanted to highlight from any of the games you watched the last 2 weeks? Why is it that Miami's like always 2 games ahead of everyone? What's up with that?
I think they just they keep playing games
they
just so we can watch them.
They had the special game as the first game of the year, and because they're Miami, they got chosen for that game. That's why they've been a game ahead the whole time. But
they're like 2 games ahead, though.
Now
at one point, they were like 3 games ahead. So I didn't understand the scheduling behind that, nor the Easter Sunday thing. Anyway, U.S. women's national team against Japan.
Yes.
They must have the formula that the men's team have, which is just make sure you get scored on in the first 30 seconds. And then everything falls into place, right?
Well, I'm not advocating. I don't think that's a good decision long term.
Not a good strategy.
Not a good strategy.
Okay.
No. Okay. Now I want to say, first of all, regardless of the game, right? So it's the second largest crowd to ever see the U.S. national team.
How many
behind the final in the Rose Bowl?
Oh.
Yep.
So that was a 90-something thousand in the Rose Bowl, and this game was 60-something thousand.
Okay, so they opened it all the way up.
It was actually interesting. I didn't know they could do this. So for Atlanta United, they've always played with the top closed with those curtains over the top section.
I thought the cap with that closes like 55 is what I thought.
Yeah. Somewhere in that ballpark. Or they play with the whole thing, which gets you up to 72 or whatever. Yeah. They did, for the first time, as far as I know, one of the 2 curtains was open.
Yep.
So
Aha, you can do that. Who knew you could do that?
Ah,
So, which actually
there's no
makes me
rules.
wonder. I'm like, why we've been doing that the whole time? Like, there are moments where we completely sell out the 55,000, and we could probably do that for Atlanta United.
Yeah.
Maybe they were trying it.
They're working with the algorithm.
I mean,
figure
it
out.
does get rid of the symmetry.
Yeah.
But that's what they did.
So break the game down. Carmen, what was your overall take on the game?
Well, I missed the first goal because I was getting food, which is
Always.
usually
Yeah.
what I
Well,
happens
show
when
it
they-
on the clips. Let's bring
Oh,
it up.
that's right. Let's see. Let me pull this up. See, I can't talk and do this all at the same time, people.
All right, I'll talk about
yeah,
it.
you talk.
So in the first minute of the game, we give the ball away, and it's interesting. Maybe you can freeze it here. Let me.
Oh, I'm gonna let you do it.
Yeah.
Is it sharing?
I gotta share it, but
All
get,
right.
get it to where you're going.
yeah,
But
just give me a second.
this is when I went in to get food. Oh, right, you paused.
So they didn't actually show it, which is too bad on the highlight clip, because I wanted to see exactly how we gave it away, because I couldn't quite remember how we gave it away. But one thing about this, so I was looking at surveying the field right before we gave this up, right? And we actually had 3 in the back, and they were straight 1, 2, 3 across the middle, which is kind of, I've been telling you that when you only have 3 in the back, they should be straight across the middle like that. But they were really, really tight to each other, and this ball is given away, and they play down our left, down their right, and the left of the center back, which is Tierna Davidson, she kind of was like, I'm a center back, and she was like really, really late to reacting to this. By the time she took off, the Japanese player was already ahead of her. Then she takes a bad angle, right? And it's really shambolic defending. So the Japanese player gets to run right in on the box, and what a finish.
That was a great finish.
That was a great shot.
Mm-hmm.
But Tierna Davidson, I thought, and maybe you can comment, Carmen, I thought she was awful. Actually, you can go back in this second clip. They showed a little bit more of it. Can you go back a few seconds to show the second version of it? Because I hadn't seen that. Go a little bit. Yeah.
Right here. There we go.
Now I'm gonna.
You got it.
So we gave it up, and they just played immediately over the top. And I actually thought our left back was further up the field. There was 3 all the way back. So the left back, who in this case was Nicewander, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but she was running up the field, and it wasn't her fault. She had to turn around and run back when we gave it away. It's clearly Tierna Davidson's the whole way. Maybe she got back quickly enough that it really Tierna Davidson thought, well, maybe she can get there. I don't know. Maybe it confused things. Right.
That seems slow.
Yeah.
But it's also a pretty nice delayed shot that snuck through there.
Yeah.
But yeah, she should have closed that space a little faster.
Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing about it is I was watching it afterwards. And so it looked to me on that play like we were really like 3 in the back. Like we just had 3 at the time. And one of the things as it went on, it was pretty clear to me that we were doing one of these way too cute by half, where it's 4 in the back always, but then, when we're on offense, it's 3 in the back. And when we're not, it's 4 in the back, which I'm always for. Like, you're like, what are you talking about? Yep. But I'm for it in a sense that the players should be making a run when they can see it. But I felt like it was tactics. Okay, we're going to play 4 in the back when we're defending and 3 in the back when we're on offense, like almost an airplane, an automatic going forward. So that's where it gets too cute by half.
Does it feel like this is time for tactical board?
Well, I want to do the tactical board in a second because I really want to talk about the center of the pitch. So Carmen, it was Coffee and Haran. Did you notice what formation Coffee and Haran were playing in the center of the pitch?
I didn't notice what that because it was officially Jaden Shaw was the other one, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I felt like
so Jaden Shaw was clearly a free attacking role, and I want to talk about that in a minute.
Yep.
But she was clearly
right.
the Almiron role, if you will, or
Right.
the Almada role, if you will. Always the attacking, free license to go.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what I mean, Coffee was back pretty much all the time.
Yes. And
I don't know the yes and. Is that the improv thing?
yes.
And.
Let's go back to let's go to the tactical board. Can you pull
Instead
up
of
the
saying
tactical
no,
board?
you say yes and.
Tactical board. All right, I'm
Yeah.
getting there, folks. I don't know why I've forgotten how to share screens, but I have. Okay.
Yeah.
And share. Live stream. And we're gonna add this puppy. Oh, let me get rid of this. Add.
There we go.
Okay, and then make it full screen because I'm blind.
Well, now you're in
There
control.
it is.
Yeah,
You're driving the bus.
All right. So I have it here. So this was the back three. Obviously, Germa got hurt. So Germa's our only good center back. She got hurt, which was a terrible blow, but she was already on the bench for this game. So that suggests it's not a huge problem. For the game that's going on right now that Carmen and I keep checking her.
I'll say it's over.
It is over?
It's over.
What?
You're smiling.
Yes, US won in penalties, 5-4.
Hey, all right.
Yep.
I have that recorded. Gonna watch. Okay. So in any case, this is what I was talking about. The way too cute by half. So Nice Wonder often it was her almost all the time. It was very Atlanta United-esque. Fox was staying at home a lot, and Nice Wonder was going forward a lot. But here's the thing. So they played the dreaded double pivot. So this was not Coffee at center back and Haran with a free roll. This, as I watched it all the time, they were like this. And do you remember Haran influencing the game that much?
No.
Particularly early. Now, Haran did influence the game in the last 30 minutes because they brought on another defender and she moved up to this spot when Shaw went off. And then all of a sudden she came to life.
Got it. Okay.
Lindsay Haran, in my opinion, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, Carmen, is not a defensive midfielder and is not a double pivot.
I know she's not a defensive midfielder. That much I know.
Yeah.
We need her up there, like
she,
causing trouble.
I think people, and this is, I think, also true of Muyumba, right? This is a case where a coaches mistake a player who has defensive abilities, as Haran does, as Muyumba has, for a defensive midfielder, because you do not want an all-action Muyumba or an all-action Haran as a defensive midfielder, because when she has to play this dreaded double pivot and she's back like this all the time, really, really limits her creativity and the freedom to go. And it was killing us.
So
now defensively, it was okay. Like they actually played it pretty well. They always had a player back. Sometimes I felt like last year with Josetto and Muyumba was a disaster, the dreaded double pivot, because they didn't know where each other were. And a lot of times it was nobody, as we pointed out. This was not the case here. But I did think that it was over tactical and it was really limiting Haran, who has to be a big player in this team.
And do you think it was just the reaction to saying our third center mid or Shaw is basically one of the top folks, so we're going to have Haran pull back? And so, like,
but is Shaw more like the Almada of the team?
Well, so I asked that to Carmen because I have a very distinct opinion on this.
A distinct opinion about whether she's the Almada of the team?
Correct.
Or, the movement up front during that whole game, I felt like, who was it? Swanson, Shaw, Rodman, for the most part. You would look up and they were just in different places all the time. So a little less Almada, who kind of, I felt like, but yeah, she could have been where Rodman is on the tactical board, where Swanson was on the tactical board, but I felt like was more of like a forward as opposed to Almada.
Yeah. So I loved Swanson and Rodman interchangeable. In fact, I thought Swanson was the best player in the game. She was electric. She was popping up in different places. It's amazing to have her back. Had she been in the World Cup, it might have been very, very different.
It would have been.
Even with the coach we had.
It would have been.
It was still would have been. I still would not have picked them to win, even with her. But anyway, here's the thing. Shaw, to me, looked physical, good on the ball, did not look like she has the movement of an Almiron or an Almada at all.
Not creativity.
Didn't have the movement in mind. So to me, what I would have said is Shaw looks like that. She looks like a prototypical number 9 that Morgan's playing. And what they did was, because of Morgan, they don't want to displace the amazing veteran, and Morgan scored a lot of goals. So they played them together, and Shaw's bumped into this like off the ball play. And to me, it's poor because they're the same player.
So who would you put in that 10 position then?
Is she on the roster?
No.
I was about to say, I'm like, I haven't heard her in a minute.
She's been amazing. So she just transferred to the Courage.
Okay.
Right. She's been amazing in NWSL. She's scored goals. She's had assists. She is that movement kind of player. I'm not saying it has to be Sanchez, but it should be a Sanchez-like player. The obvious one is Rose Lavelle, who wasn't available.
Right.
But Shaw is not that player. Anybody who's thinking Shaw, now I don't know. We have yet to see. Macario made her debut from after the injury after a long, long time.
Yeah.
She maybe could be a more creative of that kind of player. I'm not sure whether she's going to be who she's going to be after the injury.
Now, I will say that did you watch the first half of this game?
I was.
Not this game.
Tonight's game,
the Canada game.
I have it recorded.
Okay, well, sorry to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
But they started Jaden Shaw in Swanson's. No, which one? Basically, it was Swanson, Morgan Smith across the front, and the 3 in the middle were Sonnet, Coffee, and Haran. Haran was up in the stuff today.
So that is bringing in I was going to say that when Sonnet came on and Haran moved up, Sonnet was way better defensively, and we looked a lot more stable. Now, obviously, for the longest time in the U.S. defensive midfield, we had Ertz, right? And that's all you needed.
Yeah.
And they've been desperately trying to figure out some player to replace that.
Right.
Coffee, not that player. She cannot do it by herself.
No. She
looks more like a dreaded double pivot if she has to be. And honestly, when you have a double pivot, right? I mean, think, Xavi and Iniesta, who could see it and were playing all the time. That's like the, the holy grail of double pivot, right? And they always knew where they were. It was Xavi and Iniesta and Alonso, right? And they always had a guy. It was a triangle pivot, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing when you have 3 really interchangeable players and you can do that. I think, to me, the double pivot is way overused. It's a coach's excuse for when you don't have a guy who can really play defensive midfielder. You're like, oh, I got 2 midfielders, both of who can attack and play a little defense. I'm going to go with a double pivot. And the problem with that is, unless those guys are tactically disciplined and can play off each other, you end up with nobody locking it down, nobody with that role. And it's just a sieve.
You don't see Sleaze and Moyama playing off each other.
No.
Like, that's not what happened.
No, really what Sleaze is doing is
have you ever seen either one of them pass ball to? I'm trying to think of a moment where that's happened.
Not really. What I say is Sleaze is really reading it and covering it, and Muyumba in his all action way is getting next to him, which is kind of the way it would happen. Now, I think Pineda's still calling that a double pivot, and it's hurting them a little bit. I think if he would really acknowledge it and say, Sleaze is our guy, you just go to be defensive midfielder, and Muyumba, you always play off of him. Right, the moments where we look the weakest is Sleaze is playing the right side of the dreaded double pivot. The moments we look the weakest is when they're attacking right against Williams, right through Muyumba. That's where we're vulnerable. And if we allowed Sleaze to come over there and have Muyumba go weak side, it'd be fine.
Right. So basically, what you're saying is that at all times, let Sleaze take the lead on the threatening side, and let Muyumba play off of that into whatever's happening on the weak side, or let him read the game, and then make sure that the threat on whatever the backside is being taken care of by Muyumba.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think, to me, this idea that Haran is part of that double pivot, and going back to the World Cup, right? Andrzejowski thought the same thing. He was like, oh, and he was playing with whatever her name, Andy Sullivan. Yeah. And it was a disaster. I mean, ultimately in the World Cup, Haran was amazing, but because he tried it for a while, and then he was like, and then he was like, okay, Andy Sullivan, you play it by yourself. And she was just terrible at it.
She was awful.
Yeah. So attacking wise, it worked because Haran was great, but defensively, we didn't have anybody. And so that was a problem. Right. And honestly, you know, in retrospect, even in that late World Cup, towards the end of it, almost at the very end of it, he was like, oh, maybe I could play another defender as one of it. Sonnet was the answer. And Sonnet was way better than Andy Sullivan. It's just taking and this as a coach, you know, you got to get creative. If you don't have a defensive midfielder, take your most reading of your center backs and see if they give them a try. Right? There's nothing that says that fullbacks, center backs have to stay as center backs, right? If you've got 3 of them.
So we just won, though. That's good news.
That is good news. Yeah. Even though I feel like the U.S. women's national team is becoming that team. It's like, oh, they're going to give up a late against good teams. They're going to give up a late goal. Yeah, because they
can't control the midfield.
Yeah.
So right now, I mean, they actually look like Atlanta United of a year ago. Right. So their back is vulnerable, particularly defensively on the outside. The actual outside backs are not great. The only good defender is really Girma.
She's fantastic.
Dunn is still terrific, but she's not even starting. You know, Fox she's fine. High, whatever her name is, nice wonder. She looked great going forward, but she looked just like Wiley, they just took an attacking player and made her a left back.
Yeah,
right.
Because in college she was definitely an attacker. So
it's
an odd type. Yeah.
So that's my problem. So the U.S. doesn't need that. If you're looking at the U.S. women's team as a coach, you're like, okay, it's shaping up really, really nicely. We got Trinity Rodman, Sophia Smith, you got Alex Morgan, you got Mallory Swanson, right? You've got all of these, Macario if she's coming back. You got terrific attacking players, Shaw, right?
Mm-hmm.
That on the world stage is like holding a straight flush, right? And so again, you don't need that much. What you need is a couple players dynamic and pulling the strings, right? It should be Haran, it should be Rose Lavelle, in and out making things. You need to send your backs sporadically to open it up, so it's not just static across the front line, right? And mostly what you need is a back line and defensive midfielder is just going to recycle the ball, and that's where we're awful because there's no answer in the middle of the park. The middle of the park has been shambolic. We have nobody controlling it. The answer is not Coffee.
Yeah.
She didn't look at all to me. She wasn't reading the game really well. She wasn't defending really well. And then the center backs, Girma is amazing.
Amazing. So good.
And so I think her paired with one of the other ones is okay, is fine. I'd like to see a better center back paired with her, but
yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked 3 soccer games, 2 different teams. We have 2 Atlanta United games. Yeah, wrap it up.
Well, so the other thing, defensively on the corners, if you want to see like the most overly dramatic example of zonal marking on our defensive corners, the U.S. women's national team, right? We had 5 players lined up along the 6-yard box, defense in the corners. They had 2 players flanking our goalkeeper, and we went nowhere near them. Have you ever seen anybody allow 2 players to sandwich your goalkeeper inside the 6 alone?
No.
Right? And so here's my thing about the U.S. Now, granted, right, Hayes is the Chelsea coach who's going to be the U.S. coach. She hasn't come yet. So hopefully she solves some of these things. It's still the interim coach until the Premier League season ends. She has 2 months or something to get, depending on whether they make the Champions League final, to get the U.S. ready for the Olympics, which is not a lot of time, but I don't think it takes that much time. But anyway, the thing that struck me about the U.S. women's team, super overcoached. Super overcoached. This 4-3 defensive thing in the middle, this, forcing Haran to be in the double pivot, right? This zonal marking on the whatever. It's like coaching for no reason. You don't need it. The U.S. on that corner. When we're playing corners, if you look at the Japanese team, we had like a 6-inch height advantage on every single player. You do not need a zonal marking. Just mark them up and let us head them with the ball.
Let the royal flush go out there and play.
We have got an amazing team. Stop coaching. Honestly, if we went out there and are like, you guys go defend the corner, we'd be better than that.
Yeah.
So I think they're overcoached, and stop it.
Love it. That's where's the fire button on this
Sorry,
one? Come
sorry,
on.
I was thinking. My fault.
There we go.
My
Now we're
bad,
talking.
my bad.
And I'm saying that as a coach, right? Sometimes when you have that much firepower and that much talent, you gotta realize who the talent is. And the other thing that I think that they're overcoaching it is they're trying to force too many attackers onto the field. Like the whole Shaw Alex Morgan thing looked to me like a force, right? It should have been Alex Morgan or Shaw, but not both. Right? I would have rather seen even a Sophia Smith in that position. A Trinity Rodman could have dropped in there. Again, there's no law that says that Sophia Smith or Trinity Rodman has to play up front. Right? They're creative. They're good on the dribble, as you saw when she drew the penalty kick, right? To me, Shaw looks like a striker. Don't force players into the team just because, right?
Do you think, though, they're like the coach is overcoaching to kind of play with things because she's trying to figure stuff out with Emma Hayes like not even in the building. It's like, hey, what does Jane Shaw look like? We have to put her, because they only have an 18-man roster for the Olympics.
Right.
So that means you want people who can play different positions since you're not going to have like the deeper 20 whatever roster. Yep. So it's like, let's see, we want to bring Jane Shaw, which we should. But if we need to bring her back to keep her on the field, let's see what it looks like. So I feel like maybe there's a little bit of that, which is why it seems like it's being overcoached. But once we figure out our people, go let the dogs do what they do.
I mean, again, maybe, but I would say we're too close to the Olympics to be doing that. You got to be settling it. And again, it's not to me, it's a missing a talent evaluation because Shaw and Morgan have a lot of the same qualities. So I would have said, if you believe that and you got to see that, I would have said, look, you got to see, can Shaw lead the line? Can she be obviously when you have Trinity Rodman and Swanson and Sophia Smith, they're going to create a lot of things. Yep. So you need the Gigi in that team, right? You need the person in the box. And Alex Morgan has shown for years that she can do that. You know that. You got that. Nobody worried about that. So if I were coaching, I would have started Shaw up front in the middle and say, can you be that player? And I would have given her the chance. You can win that spot and be the starter in the Olympics. If I have to bring Alex Morgan as a backup so that, Shaw doesn't start every game, maybe in the second game, Alex Morgan gets a start, or Alex Morgan clearly comes off the bench in the last 20 minutes, because Alex Morgan is a little bit older, she's lost a little bit of a step, but she's still great in the box.
She's so good.
And in the last 20 minutes, oh my God, that's your player. So you got to get her to accept that role. Yeah. And the question is, who's the other person? And I would have tried Shaw. And I would have said, if it's not Shaw, then it should be Trinity Rodman and Sophia Smith and Swanson.
Okay.
Right? Who says we have to have X?
Yeah. Because they tried to leave Alex Morgan at home for, what was it, the Gold Cup?
Yeah.
Somebody got hurt, so she went. But it would have been interesting to see a whole tournament without Alex Morgan.
But the bottom line is, U.S. is not – you're going to go as far as we sort out the center of the park. Right now, the center of the park is a disaster. And you can't tell me that there's not an extra defender out there somewhere, right? It doesn't have, maybe you say, okay, look, I'm looking across NWSL and I don't see a defensive midfielder. Okay, so take a defender and move them up. For example, if you had to, right, bring on an extra center back and Germa becomes your defensive center midfielder. You cannot tell me that she's not smart enough to play that role and would be terrific.
Oh, she'd be fantastic, but I still need her as my center back. I gotta have her.
Yeah, but I mean, this is what I'm saying. And now's not the time to be experimenting with it. You need to have started that. But if you don't have a defensive midfielder and Coffey's not it, and the double pivot with Coffey and Haran is not it. Now, we may survive because we may outscore people And, hopefully Hayes will get us dynamic enough up front. We just scored 3 goals against everybody. And you say, okay, you scored 2, we score 3. You score 4, we score 5,
Yeah.
But we're not going to control games. Not with the midfield we have.
Sorry, I'm reading Strong. I can't even read. I don't have my glasses on. Strong Vic comment: can they stop with the cringe sounding names for women's tournaments?
She believes.
The She Believes Cup is always. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound right. But
fair. That's fair.
That's fair. That's fair. And I love women's soccer. I love all this type stuff. But yeah, that name is a little weird.
So long podcast. To wrap it up, let's go back to Atlanta United.
Okay.
2 home games coming up.
Big
this
one.
weekend, Philadelphia. Weekend after that is who?
Who we got?
Another good team.
You're already getting us a week. I thought you were going to say just next.
Cincinnati is after that. So it's Philadelphia, Cincinnati on the 20th. Meet against Miles Robinson, right? How's he been playing against the number 1 team in the East? Or how's he been playing for the number 1 team in the East?
Well, they're not number 1 anymore.
They're not.
So Philadelphia is number 2. New York Red Bulls is number 1. And Cincinnati's fallen all the way to 5th.
Wow.
Now, to be fair, New York Red Bulls has 14. Philadelphia, Miami, Columbus, Cincinnati all have 12. And most of them have a game in hand on us, except for Philadelphia. Philadelphia in the early days has looked like the best team in the MLS on paper, on the results wise. I'm not saying they're the best. I still think at the end of the day, Columbus and Cincinnati and Miami are the best in the league. Red Bulls out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Are they for real? New designated player. Great.
Sounds like they invested a lot in some players, right? 20 million in some players.
Yeah. So maybe if that's the case, then we're even more in trouble for making a top 4 spot. Because we're already fighting with Columbus, Cincinnati, Miami, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Right? We were thinking it was going to be maybe Orlando.
I was thinking LA Galaxy making the investment in the players, not
New York. But New Red Bulls got a bunch of new players too, including a new designated player. So, yeah. But anyway, the bottom line is Philadelphia looks like early on paper, results wise, they've been the best team. And so, and points per game, they're basically the best team because they have 1 game in hand. So this is a big game.
Who do we have? What's our best lineup right now?
Well, I mean,
we're missing Williams
in the back.
Gregerson.
It's a problem, but up front, you still got, you still have Silva, Gigi, Almada, Saba are all there. The big 4.
You got Lennon and Wiley still
on the back. Yeah.
Sleaze will be there for now.
Sleaze is a huge thing in Muyumba. So we can control the middle.
So we pretty much have, as long as Abram or whomever come in, right, that we shore it up.
And I'm going to argue with how well Sleaze is playing in particular, and then Muyumba off of him. So you don't need the best center back pair.
So we'll see Cobb and Abram likely, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, God bless, if you're Miles Robinson, you got to be looking at this and we're like, where the F was that defensively in the whole time? Because if he had Sleaze in front of him, we would have probably been MLS champs.
Mm-hmm.
Because we saw at the end of the year, he got so frustrated. Remember, we talked about him charging out these crazy things because there was nobody in the midfield.
Right.
If you're Noah Cobb, or if you are Williams, or now it's going to be Abram, you don't have to do that because Sleaze is there.
No.
Like, hey, Sleaze is that guy. And Sleaze, not only he reads it forward, there are times where he's gone in behind the back, too, when the danger is there. I mean, he is an excellent player.
Carmen, he's giving me a lot to think about. What do you think the result's going to be against Philadelphia this weekend? Given that
we're at home,
given that upfront talent part is still there, we got Sleaze to sweep up some things.
I'll take a draw.
Taking a draw.
I'll take a draw.
I am actually going to say we're going to win one again.
Okay.
And I would say, so last year, the formula would have said, at home we win, or against the very best teams we get a tie. And so now you would say Philadelphia coming in as the very best team, so you would say tie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think with Sleaze, we are formula plus.
Yeah.
Which means we are a little above the formula.
Yeah.
And I think that we get a win by a goal. I'm going to call.
I think that's about right.
2-1 or 3-2. I'm going to go with 2-1.
2-1, 3-2 sounds exactly right.
We win by 1 goal.
Even with Noah Cobb and Abram as our center back. You all think Sleaze can protect us that much?
Because dominate the middle.
Doesn't change. It doesn't really change that much. Like Derek Williams isn't a total baller.
No, he's not that good.
Noah Cobb's big and physical and can play good one-on-one. So we don't need him to read the game with Sleaze in front of him, like Dave said.
Watch like Stian walk out and be like the center back. That'd be amazing.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
If he's there, then we for sure.
Yeah.
But what I would say is the reason why we are Formula Plus is because Muyumba Sleaze is a way better, and we're controlling games.
Yeah. And
as soon as you control games, then the front four will score. I mean, we will score. We look like a team against most of the teams at home that will score 3 goals, Philadelphia, because they have the best goalkeeper in the world, maybe. I say we only get 2. He comes up with some amazing
now
saves.
You're being facetious, but that's okay.
He's amazing. Anyway, I think he would stack up with the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. I'm not saying he's the best in the world because I think it's probably Ederson and Allison. But anyway, what I was going to say is Formula Plus because of that. But here's the downside.
We knew there had to be a downside.
I still don't have us predicted. You would say Formula Plus, you would predict us top 4 for sure. Because last year we were 6, whatever.
But yeah, long term, there's too many things over the summer.
The problem is there's too many things over the summer. There's too many players. The moment we lose Sleaze, we go to Formula Minus. Right? Because you no longer have Miles Robinson, and now you don't have the protection. Yeah. And thank God we're going to have Dax McCarty to fill in, but I don't think he's Sleaze.
Well, also, I think people are going to realize the Almada asleep thing is not so real once Almada's gone. You're gonna find out what asleep looks like.
We struggle to create chances overall.
I mean, creativity is going to be begging when he's not.
I mean, everybody talked about how bad it was when we had all the internationals absent, right? But and we didn't create anything, right? At Toronto.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing about that game in particular was, Saba, who's been so great, couldn't do anything without Almada.
No. He just missed some of those. Like, I mean, even in the last game, like he bent this weird ball out to Lennon, like on the outside of the 18 that like curled around the player and like landed right on his foot. You're like,
he's so amazing.
Like no
I'm
other
still
MS,
an Almada fan.
Yeah, no other MS players are doing that. Come on.
Yeah, it's weird because even when you're in the stadium, soon as Almada gets the ball, you start to see the whole field. You're like, what is he gonna do?
Where are they going?
So you're like where other people get the ball at their feet, you're kind of looking at them around them. But as soon as he gets the ball, it's like you start to see the whole field to see what he's possibly could do.
Yeah, and I think to your point in that NYCFC game, there's a little bit of mental fatigue. He's trying to put too much on his shoulders to try to get the win on his own and ended up making mistakes instead of being the hero, which was my second stock tip, which is why you should never take any stock tips from anyone, Dave.
We didn't have Sleaze in that game either, right? Because he was playing for Poland, trying to make it to the Euros. And you saw without Sleaze, we do not turn the ball up over the field. Muyumba was there.
It's a Toronto game.
Yeah, in the Toronto game, we do not turn the ball over up the field. And when you don't turn the ball up the field, you create far fewer chances. We created very little. Yeah. So when we have those guys, as you saw in the first clip that we showed today, Gigi can press, we win the ball back up high, and we do that, forget it.
Yeah, the Colonel. I don't even know who this person is. I apologize. He's like MLS legend Bobby Bosworth said in 2018 that the defending midfielder is the most important player on the pitch. He was kind of referring to Nagby, but the comment applies to Muyumba and Sleaze.
I completely agree.
So, yeah. This is exciting. Y'all sound so positive. I love it. Y'all are talking about Formula Plus. This is awesome.
A lot of things have been fixed. We have tons of talent. The big problem is more of the schedule.
We can see the horizon.
See the horizon, the schedule of the summer, and just key players missing. That is ultimately going to make us slip down the table, which sucks.
Which is why you have to get a win at New York City FC because they're going to end up at the bottom of the table. Yeah. And in normal seasons, no problem. Slip up or whatever. Right. But once you lose Almada and Sleaze and things like during the summer.
We just don't want to run that gauntlet not being in the top 4, at the end of the season. We need that home field
come
advantage.
back to bite us.
It's going to come back to bite us. I don't see us being in the top 4.
No, unfortunately.
Not because of the team.
Yeah, I think the team's good.
Team's good. But thanks, everybody, for listening. Oh, no, you got more. Got more.
Just like back in Guadalajara. You say it?
Dance us out, baby.
You gotta do it.
See you at Wild Heaven. See you at Wolf.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Danny. My Wolves got screwed this last weekend off of that VAR. I just want to say that before the show ends. Shambolic VAR. Good night, everybody.
Night, guys.